Charlene, can you give us? Awesome, you're on the big speakers now. Okay. Yep, very good, thanks. All right, thanks, Alex.
I think we're gonna have the seniors, they're supposed to be coming here. We're gonna do a speaker request for them. The seniors,
Yeah.
are supposed to be coming to talk. I just got a text
Good,
about an hour ago saying they're coming.
that's good.
For some
Yeah,
reason.
talk about their trip. Great.
Is there any budget paperwork? Any white column, and just like budget copies, stuff that you're gonna be going over?
Just got a slideshow. The budget was included in the budget.
Just what was in the newsletter. You get them.
Oh, don't worry about it. I'll get it halfway, don't worry about it.
I call the budget hearing to order. Okay, so.
One more. How long you got in the audience?
Charlene, you have any part? Are you presenting anything or just my slides? You're muted. Okay.
How they get there, I can use the wrong way, I can use it. No, just watch it play basketball, it's very slow. Congratulations. Okay, I'll go with a lot.
I didn't know you were coming.
Where's Ross?
Okay. Let me see, okay, so this is the budget hearing. The budget's been done, and we'll go over if you look at it. So basically, it's the budget hearing. The budget was started a while ago when we started talking about reassessment in the tax levy on August 16th. There was the Fort Edward fiscal presentation, and Charlene prepared for us that had the 5-year outlook and some of the prior history that got us into where we basically were. Then we had budget session 1 on December 14th. That was the calendar development and the goals that we were to work on in order to make a budget work. Budget session 2 happened on January 24th. It was a discussion of the budget priorities and manner to proceed, a review of the governor's proposal, and a preliminary report on projected revenues on January 24th. We did that. On February 14th, we had budget session 3. That was the preliminary report on anticipated expenditures, basically the governor's expenditures and what we were going to do now started to merge. And those were our expenditures of the different things, bringing back program, maintaining services. Budget session 4 was the proposal, which was the first draft. And then we made any adjustments that the board recommended on the 14th. On March 14th, then the following meeting, which is in April, we finally made the final adjustments as requested, and the board adopted a proposed spending plan for the May 17th community vote, along with the property tax report card on April 11th. We also did another presentation as things settled a little bit and we got an idea of what was going on with the assessment. So we did another updated assessment presentation on reassessment in the tax levy to try to help people understand that the tax levy is a set amount of money. It's not something that grows with the community. All that does is change the rate, but it doesn't change the amount of money that the entity, this in our case, the school district, collects, which now brings us to the budget hearing. So all these things started in August. As you see, things were going on in December, and then every month there was a meeting and a workshop that got us to where we are today. So the newsletters went out, the budget was adopted for presentation to the public, and now we're having a hearing. Basically, the total budget for this school year is going to be next school year would be $11,779,348. That's a dollar difference of $682,584, which is an increase in operations of 6.15%. The tax levy, which is fixed by law unless we're going to exceed the tax levy, is an increase of $67,842. We keep talking about that number for a long time, and that's at 2%, which is at the cap. State aid increased 5.56%, and if you look at that, 3% we know was foundation aid, but there's other aids all mixed in there. So state aid increases. That includes excess cost aid and foundation aid. But no, while numbers don't seem to add up, it's because we were also losing money in transportation aid, building aid, BOCES aid, and instructional material aids from the prior year. And the reason some of these aids change, like the IMA, the instructional material aids, it's based on the population of your students. So as the student population goes down, the aid goes down with it, and so does the formula expenses in various categories. So that the fund balance is where we took a chunk, and that was $293,000 increase to $93,227, or if you look at it in a percentage change, 267% over the prior year. If you remember the presentation that was done in March, as well as April, we talked a lot about the federal grants being used to keep the district afloat, as well as the use of fund balance, and that it's not sustainable. So this shouldn't be news to anyone. So on May 17th, the public gets a chance to vote. And Proposition 1 is, shall the Board of Education of the Union Free School District, Village of Fort Edward, and the County of Washington be authorized to expend $11,779,348 for the fiscal year of 2022-2023, which is a 2% increase over the levy from last year, while the budget is different. Proposition 2, be resolved that the Board of Education of Fort Edward, the Village of Fort Edward Union Free School District, Village of Fort Edward, in the County of Washington, is seeking authorization to lease one 66-passenger bus, not to exceed $23,300 per year, for a term of 5 years. The current bus, I believe it's bus number 20, is over 10 years old, and it's, when they get over a certain age, we're spending as much money to DOT and get them through the system as it is for the lease without the aid. So with the aid, we're actually ahead of the game on the bus. Proposition 3, be it resolved, Board of Education of the Fort Edward Union Free School District, Village of Fort Edward, in the County of Washington, is seeking to change the number of board members from 9 members to 7 members. There's been discussion on that issue over, quite a few months. And I also have the breakdown on how that's going to work. Basically, the following year, there'll be 2 board seats coming to an end. There'll be 1 election for a new board seat. The following year, there'll be another election for a board seat. Basically, there'll be an election every year. But what I'm going to do is amend this presentation before we post it, so I could put the rotation on it so people in the community could see that. But there's a new board member eligible every year. Some years it's 2, some years it's 1, and so on.
Can I piggyback on that real
Yeah.
quick, Mark? Because last month during the discussion for that, I had made a comment where I said there would be a year with no vote because that was the original rotation that had went out. So what you're saying is the new rotation.
Right. There's a difference. That the other rotation we saw was if we went to 3 years instead of staying at 5 years.
Yep.
So staying at 5 years helped the rotation work, that there'll be an election every year.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Proposition 4, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Fort Edward Union Free School District, Village of Fort Edward, in the County of Washington, is seeking to establish a transportation and maintenance equipment reserve with a maximum limit of $2 million with an end date through June 30th, 2032. So basically, when you set up a reserve, this is what they call a restricted reserve. The community gives us a chance to establish the reserve. The community also has to authorize by vote for us to spend the money that gets put into the reserve. So right now, we're borrowing basically every dollar we need to borrow to buy the new school bus, whereas in the future, we wouldn't have to spend money on the borrowing portion if we have money in our reserve, so we can sort of prepay the bus if we buy a purchase or the lease. So that saves us on like interest rates. So that money then with our 90-something% aid all comes back to the district. Now the thing is, it only runs for 10 years. You could only put up to $2 million in it. It doesn't mean you could fill it with $2 million. So for example, if let's say there was $80,000 in it and we took out 40, your total amount that could ever be in that reserve is reduced by $40,000. So that you could put up to over 10 years in. But you can't put any more than that $2 million in over the years. Anything that goes in is in. Anything gets voted out gets voted out. Whatever gets voted out counts against the $2 million. So it's not a place that you just get to put money. And like I said, the public gets to vote for this reserve, and the public gets to vote for the money to come out of the reserve. Meaning, if we're going to buy a bus, we can't just say, "Hey, we got the money, let's go buy a bus." We still need to go through all of the propositions. Then on May 17th, we have board elections. Your vote is for 3 candidates for the vacancies to be filled on the Board of Education. 1 for a 5-year term commencing on July 1st and expiring on the 2027. Filled by Ellen Collins on June 30th, 2022, and to fill the seat presently held by Joe Carroll, whose term expires on 2030-2022. To fill the seat by Patricia Superman. So if there's one Joe Carroll and there's one Patricia, who's in for Anita, and then there's Joe Carroll's seat. So there's 2 seats that are up, which is the Joe Carroll seat, the Ella Collins seat. Those are two that are gonna go to 2027 on the new one. So Joe and Ella, and then what's gonna happen is Mrs. Tripp's seat expires in 2024. So the 3rd place candidate ends up with the seat that goes to 2024. The 3rd place candidate also takes their seat at the end of the vote meeting. When you have it, you could technically swear that person in, have them sign the card, and they're good to go that day on. They'll be a board member from that point forward through the rest of the 2024 seat. So therefore, as far as board meetings go, Patty, thank you for everything, but this is your last meeting with us, but we'll talk more about it at the regular meeting. So that's basically the budget hearing. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. You know, this is your chance from the floor. I mean, the biggest time to ask questions was back when we were planning the budget. Now I can just respond to why things are the way they are. So,
Just a question period.
sure.
Proposition 2. Is there more than 50 or 60 kids now on that bus at any time? I always see a bus that's probably half full.
Yeah.
I'm not
So-
sure if there isn't the students, why get the 66 passengers?
Well, because we do move teams around at times, so the small buses restrict you. So basically, we had the same thought process in a prior school district that I was, and for the amount of money that we saved on the aid, which is less than $1,000 over 5 years, we got stuck with more or less a bus that we can only use in certain circumstances, which is your 66 passenger bus you could use in all circumstances.
So less passengers, only about $1,000 difference.
Yeah, after aid, it's really not that much, because we're gonna get 90% back on the aid. So you're talking pretty much about
I was just
$1,000.
wondering, because I've never seen the bus full.
Yeah, but you haven't seen the sports teams go out then.
Yeah,
It's full,
that was my question.
yeah, full with equipment, and sometimes we even need another vehicle to get the equipment down the road.
That's my part, get the
Yeah.
proposition 3.
Yeah.
Why go from 9 board members to 7? We've had 9 board members in this district for years, and we had no problem. 9 minds are better than 7. And I don't know who come up with this idea of going to 7, but I think it's a ridiculous idea, especially in board members.
Yep, well, it's come up because I guess in the past, and I wasn't here, a lot of times we were stuck with a write-in vote. And this was, if you have less people running, maybe more people would fill the seats and run for the
That's
elections.
why.
But on the 17th, you get to vote no. I mean, you're right.
If it shouldn't have been brought up, I don't know who brought this up in the first place, if a board member brought this up, you know? Is a specific board member brought this 9 to 7?
Yeah.
Why?
I actually did, just out of a curiosity originally was what I had asked about. Because I think that in a district of this size, I did feel that 9 board members was a lot. And I looked into what other districts in the area have for numbers of board members. And like Mark had said, there has been difficulty filling seats in the past. At times they've been filled by a write-in that only had a couple of write-ins. So I had originally brought it up as a question of what is the process, because I didn't even know what the process was. And so we had several board meetings where it was discussed as the process is to put it forward to the voters. Another thing that we had discussed was the term length, because the term lengths are for 5 years at this point. And we had discussed the possibility of changing that to 3-year terms. That we decided to not put out to the voters. We did decide to put this piece out to the voters to see if it is something that people would be interested in. I apologize that it's not, seen favorably, but it was something out of curiosity, and something that we did discuss several meetings in a row that we chatted about publicly. So
But usually, as a board member, the first couple of years, you're getting your feet wet.
sure.
You're learning the system, you learn what's going on in the school, you learn about the superintendent, and what his objectives are. And we've never had any problem with 9 members. I think it's a privilege for a person to be on the Board of Education. and to cut one somebody's throat, saying you're going over 7 rather than 9, I think it's totally ridiculous. And I think 9 members are perfect, we've had it for 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, you get a few board members, if you're low, well, they want to go to 7. 7 can be a problem.
Well, sir, we appreciate your opinion, absolutely, and to Mandy's point, it was talked about a lot in the board.
It should have been talked about.
3 years ago, 3 members got board seats with less than 9 write-ins, because no one ran for the seats. So that was kind of a problem that's been brewing for a while. We weren't getting enough folks to come up and step up for the board seats. So, and maybe that's changed, maybe there's more people interested now, and that's why it's out to a public vote. If folks feel the way you do, we'll certainly vote no, and it will remain 9 if the majority votes no. But it's definitely important to put it out there because the board has had difficulty getting folks to run in recent years.
I mean, I've been around anybody that didn't want to run for the Board of Education. I think it's a privilege.
You're right, you're absolutely right about that. You're right about that.
So I know I'm only one vote, but I think it should never be brought up. 9 is a perfect thing for 4. 9 minds are better than 7.
Then I'll own that, because I was the one who did, bring it to the
I've been around a lot longer
I'll own it.
than you have.
So, yes, and I respect that. And I do think that there are
So
members of the.
I know a little bit how the Board of Education runs how it operates.
All right,
It's been out for 29 years.
I was just
Awesome.
wondering,
Chris?
I was just going back to the busing.
yep.
Is this increasing our bus space? I mean, is there any plans to bring back like the K through 2 busing?
Not with this bus, no. It's basically replaced bus 20. If we could keep bus 20 going if it doesn't get expensive, as a substitute bus, that would be great. But no, that would require us not only bringing back a couple more buses, that would also, or at least another bus on top of this one, it would also require us hiring drivers that aren't in this budget. The thing about the busing, and we looked at it, and it was covered in another prior workshop, we only get aid for any student on the trip to and from school, for any child that lives more than a mile from the school building.
Right.
And basically, that only covers about 4 houses up in the Knolls.
Yeah.
Everything else is non-aidable, so it's at the total expense of the taxpayer. So we looked at what that increase would be, and it would be pretty exorbitant.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because back when we were talking to everybody about the school and pluses and minuses and things like that, a lot of people brought up, younger kids, presenting a difficulty, people don't get out of work at 2:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was it is for smaller kids. It's never really been much longer in second grade here, I don't think, but,
No,
kindergartners and young kids like that, it's pretty young.
so it would require us to hire a driver, get a bus, and none of it would be aidable. Maybe someday in the future, as things start to, get back together here, we could reinstitute that. This wasn't the year, unfortunately.
A proposition for $2 million, we're gonna get it.
When you end up with fund balances that are over the New York State 4%, that's considered what the state now considers, you're in a fund that you can't do. It's called the whatever fund balance. So we have to put it in.
One school that goes with 2%. Most of them report 6% of the fund balance.
Right.
Let's get off that.
Right, so the deal is you gotta make a concerted effort to move some money into what they call the restricted reserves. We're not borrowing a cent. Not borrowing a cent. That's for money that's beyond the 4%, that when things don't look too healthy, when the auditor's coming, we're allowed to move money into restricted reserves that the public gave us permission to put the money in. So you could have tons of money in the so-called restricted reserves. What they look at is the unrestricted reserve is the one that they punish you for. So the deal is, if you're doing good money management and you're putting the money in your restricted reserves for future expenditures so that you don't have to cause spikes for your taxpayers, that's what the controller is looking for. So we just went out to get a bus. In the future, if we have enough money that we could put little excesses each year into that fund.
You're saying take it over 2%, you're gonna take it and put it in this fund?
Not over 2%. Over the 4%, some of that money could be moved into different reserves.
You're gonna put it in the bank and put a different name, right?
Right, where we're allowed to. We're not allowed to keep any excess funds in the unrestricted reserve, technically above 4%. And every school district, including Fort Edward, gets hit with that 4%. And then you write a letter of how you're gonna use the money more judiciously to comply with the state. And that is one of the ways for us to comply with the
See, that's
state.
like, so I'm talking about a 10-year deal. All the information I read on your 5-year proposal and all this stuff, at the end of 2 years, we're in a hole. What do we plan on doing between now and 2 years when all this slush fund money from the state for COVID is gone? What are we gonna do?
That's a great
I mean,
question.
the budget looks good this year. I get the credit for it,
Yeah,
because you use that money. But the thing is, in 2 years, and you said it yourself,
I have.
in 2 years,
Yeah.
it's a ban.
Yeah.
Exactly what the word,
Yeah.
what it says.
In all honesty,
So
there's
what are we
gonna,
gonna do between now and in 2 years?
they're gonna have to do a budget vote that breaks the cap. And the community's gonna have to support the school that they love, and they're gonna have to break the cap. But this year, with the assessments going crazy, and people not understanding what assessments are, and when they read those little forms, some of them fell out of their chairs, this wasn't the year to do it, was it? Yeah, so hopefully after the dust settles, and we can communicate to the community what this school actually needs to stand on its own following the COVID monies, hopefully the community comes back out in droves and makes good things happen.
I just don't wanna be in the position we were in when the water plant, but
Yeah.
we all got hurt by that.
But the community also is gonna hear about it for about 2 years, so it's not a shock to them when we come out, or whoever is here comes out to make that happen.
You wouldn't think we would forget the dewatering plants so fast.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what you're doing, I have new positions right now.
Those positions will go away.
No, they won't.
Well,
Have you ever met a position you didn't love?
yeah. And they've went away.
Never seen one here, unless it was by absolute necessity.
Well, let's say the two positions we have, like the director of pupil services funded through the grant, and the social worker, if they do their job right, they could save the district a lot of money from students that we have to put out to BOCES. If they do that job right, and they can show that they have created the savings to pay for their salary, why don't you keep them? But if they don't make a difference, I'd say sayonara in 2
Because the
years.
community
Not a
knows the
problem.
pupil personnel is just a slick way of sneaking in your own principal. It's not.
It's not a principle.
Listen, everybody knows that. I mean, it's no secret. Bring back that other person, and you had a chance with the superintendent bringing him in and maybe going, having them do some principal work. But everything is always easier to say, hey, let's do this, let's add. The social worker makes a lot of sense, but does the social worker make more sense if you go back to a part-time, a half-time psychologist like we did in the past and worked perfectly? Or do you need 2 full-time music teachers, which we never had? Could we go 1.5? There's always a way to pay for positions you feel like are more necessary. This is, I mean, there's a ton of money here. We're gonna have a disaster in a couple of years. We're not gonna get rid of those positions. It's just not gonna happen. Why do, and listen, guilty as charged. But you learn. Free money goes away.
We know free money goes away, and it's been mentioned
You say,
throughout the
"But it's not free money anymore."
presentation.
You gotta go to the taxpayers and say, hey, we're gonna have to blast you now, and if you love our school, which you said you did, then you have to pay for it. That's such bull.
Listen, you and I, Paul, had a conversation a while ago about the importance of bringing someone in that might be able to bring kids into the school and save on the money that we spend sending them out, and that would bring revenue into the school. You and I had that conversation.
Makes sense.
Trying to do that.
That makes sense.
That's what these 2 positions do.
But social worker, it may in some ways, but the pupil personnel person's gonna be doing administrative roles. They're going to be whether that's the way it is or not.
Yeah, director,
Personnel services is specialized in the world of special education. Their credentials, yes, they will have a building level of the district leader or certificate, but their background has to be in special education, whether it's school psych, speech language, any of those areas, so that they can look at our special education department. As you know, it's a district's biggest cost and biggest liability. And if we don't get somebody in here to oversee that department, and just to be clear, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, our plan is not to have a full-time school psych next year. The plan is to have the school psych only doing testing here. So that director of people personnel services is going to be overseeing all of the special education programming, which includes all of the out-of-district students, in an attempt to figure out how to build programs and get those back. The only person that can do that is somebody with that title of Director of People Personnel Services. It's not just a teacher on assignment who's a CSE chairperson. It's not just a school psychologist who is on assignment as a CSE chairperson. Somebody with an administrative background who can look at it big picture, and I can tell you because I operate in that position, it is a different level of certification and a different level of ability to go and say, this is what we're going to do to bring kids back. And like Mark said,
You operate in what position?
I am school psychologist and CSE/CPSE/504 chairperson.
Right. Can't that person do it?
We don't have a school psychologist to, no,
We've
they
been looking
post it
for-
all year. I get contacted every couple of months by local districts. The school psychologists are a dying breed right now, I'm telling you, dying breed.
Where's this? How much are you spending of the COVID money on positions?
Probably over 200 grand.
Where's the $600 or almost $600,000 increase in the budget?
You had 1.2 million.
Yeah. Go back.
I know you're saying
Because
that we
sitting
would
here-
have seen it though.
Well, we're
Reading flood.
sitting here, we're assuming that it's positions, right? Which is why, if it's not, if you're not talking about the bulk of this being, I mean, you're actually it's almost $700,000 increase in the total budget, which is huge. Is the budget just increased?
Some
because of
budget,
state aid increase?
some goes up just on cost going up.
I did
I
10
don't-
years, I did 10 years on the board.
No, it's
I know
not
the ins
pennies.
and outs.
It's not pennies.
I'm just saying, I'd like an explanation of that because.
Yeah.
I mean,
Charlene,
That's a
join us?
6.5% increase. If you're taking,
sorry,
if you're taking money from this.
He wants to
Can I finish my
know how
comment?
it became a $600,000 increase.
A $600,000 increase in a year when you're taking money, are you taking money from the fund balance, the balance budget?
We're taking 200,000 from the fund balance, yes.
So
And we're taking
$600,000.
400,000 from
increase in a year
state
you're
aid.
taking from the fund balance, doesn't seem right.
I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for the budget, but I hope that you do a little work between now and 25. And I hope I'm still here for 25. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies.
I like Charlene. She's got the numbers.
Mr. President. I'm not doing
Yeah, Charlene?
I'm not doing question.
Well, he's trying to find out why the budget increased $682,000. What is the big money?
Breakdown.
What's the big breakdowns?
It's
It's all in the budget, but it's not going to have all the numbers by function.
So could you explain how much of it's positions and how much of it is whatever else, please? I don't have the budget from the budget.
So, as an example, just so I can, and this was explained, quick question, what is rolled into finance? Right, because that's a generic, it seems kind of generic, finance went up $242,000. So just that, is there a breakdown of what is encompassed in finance that was blocked?
Should be a line by line look.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Charlene, did you get the question?
No.
No, I can't, it's very hard, I'm sorry.
Do you want to come closer speaking to
Basically, explain exactly.
Can you hear me, Charlene?
That'd be nice. If you can't hear me, you'd be the first. Charlene, can you hear me? Is this where it is? Okay, so my question is, as an example, finance seems pretty generic, and it was a big significant increase. So could you explain what is wrapped into finance that made that go up $242,000, as an example?
Is that in the budget newsletter?
Yeah,
That was in the, I don't
Yeah.
have that, I'm sorry, I didn't have a copy of that. So I did act on that, trying to do a breakdown of the increase in that line, but I don't have that for you to see.
So what is the budget?
Is this a budget, is this the budget hearing?
Yep.
James, you're finance committee, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what's the increases are?
When we saw it line by line, they fit into different categories. So we don't have a line by line right in front of us.
We kind of want to know.
Basically, if you'd have been at any of the prior meetings, you'd have seen all the
Sir,
line
you
by
keep
line.
throwing this shit about
You know
not
what
being
I
at the
mean?
meetings.
So-
I studied for the bar exam for 10 weeks. I couldn't go to the meeting. So like, if I come to the budget hearing, I would like to have.
That's not our
questions, I would
responsibility.
like
And secondly, it's not our responsibility.
That's so rude.
So,
It's your responsibility.
Geez, you know, you get offended pretty easy, but
Mark,
I'm
it's your
trying to help you.
responsibility to provide that information to the public at this meeting.
Yeah.
You can't just tell us tough, you come.
No, I hear you. That's why I'm reaching out to the business official who has the line by line.
Yeah,
I don't have a copy of the line.
Okay, good.
I do know that, line 1240, which is your chief school administrator, that increased by 42,000.
So
that is the superintendent's office, and I do know that we did include a full-time secretary for the superintendent in that line. Currently, we've been operating with, our retired, secretary to the superintendent, and she has been coming in and working approximately 2 days a week, and she has been not really, functioning as a secretary to the superintendent, but has been working in the front office and has been doing the district clerk duties. So this year, we are trying to reinstate many of the support staff and administrative staff positions that were abolished during the contingency budget. We talked about this during the budget meetings, that this past year we were able to reinstate the teaching positions, but none of the support staff and none of the administrative positions were restored. So in this budget, we have the money in to restore a full-time secretary to the superintendent. In the business administration line, line 1310, that's probably your biggest increase in your administration budget. And that is, I know, includes the positions that the board has already approved, and people that have already started working in March. So we have a full-time business person 5 days a week, and a business administrator 3 days a week. So I know a lot of that is increased in the administration budget.
How much was the increase that you used?
With the business manager.
I think that's the 200 grand that you're looking at.
Right, so they're trying to operate with, basically a part-time business manager, 40% days a week, and that really has not been enough for the school district to function.
And a good amount of that's also BOCES aidable.
It is.
So it'll cause revenues on the other end.
Right.
And, for Edwards, BOCES aid rate is 8%.
So I
I hope that answers your question.
So basically between the new positions, business and administration and superintendent's office, so you said about 200,000 you're gonna use for the new positions.
Right, so you get your business
So
office.
200 for the administrative makeup and 43 more for the, I assume probably the secretary and the business
Right.
office.
And there's also savings being that some of your expenditures, like for when John Godfrey and myself were, there were no benefits and a lot of other
Right.
things on the interim year. So there's some monies in there that look, they were budgeted ones like,
Understood.
but spent a different, actually less, which is part of how you get some
Understood.
excess money. But a lot of this 200 and something is also BOCES aidable.
Okay. So I'm getting about 443, so regular increases, you'd say make up the rest of it? Increases in salary, benefits, stuff like that?
Utilities.
Is there anything else that stands out?
Some are additional students going out building placements.
Yeah, the out-of-district placements was a big chunk.
Another 270.
Special ed budget up.
Yeah.
The approximate that I have documented here, which was back in February, student with disability residential placement increases, early estimate at that point of 275,000. Some of that does come back in aid because they're considered high-cost students, so you pay out the money and then you put them into the high-cost SCAP system, so you do get aided on them, but it's not fully reimbursed.
Okay. So the main reason I'm asking for the breakdown, just generally knowledge, but also I'm obviously going to report this through our interested parties, and I want to give a proper breakdown of stuff the way that it is, and not misrepresent that you have a $700,000 increase in spending and not know what it is.
Yeah.
People will say
So-
people will say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna put, if you could send me your email,
Yeah.
and then that way you get in touch with Charlene, and we can give you a little bit of a better line-by-line budget.
Okay. And the last thing I'd like to ask, because it's why Jack's here, and
It's what, sorry, I said here.
it's why Jack's here. When the numbers and stuff came out, he looked down and he found a tax rate, is it projection or like a guess?
Okay, so the
Something around the 20% range?
Right, so the tax rate is it's very conservative, meaning it could be better, but it shouldn't be any worse.
You're not using an actual rate.
No, so what happens, we're using last year's 100% levy before the town reassessed. We believe the town reassessed at a higher rate, but we're not gonna say that because it's the town's job, or the village's job, not our job.
But generally,
So-
you're not asking for more money and there's more assessed value, so like the tax rate is gonna go.
The tax rate is actually gonna be lower than what
And that comes out when?
August.
Okay.
It'll have to go down considerably because I took that pathways and it was $20.83. I've been reassessed $50,000. I don't argue about the reassessment because I put the houses at market value. But if we don't, I figured based on the, what they come up with the figure, I get the Enriched Star program. I'm on a Social Security and pension. So I figured I was going to, if that was the rate, I was going to pay over almost $600 for the year. And I've got one income coming in, and that's all I got.
I know.
But this budget rate has to go down. It has to go down considerably. Fortunately, I can pay it, but it's not the idea. I just feel sorry for these people that are just on Social Security, and that's all they have, and they're going to be increased. And I went into Washington County and compared my house to all the houses in my neighborhood. I said, we're all about the same there, so. But I think we got a capacity rate, if that rate doesn't go down considerably, and, of course, you use $20.83.
Yeah.
It'd have to go down a lot more than that to help these poor people out.
Right, so we took the formula, which was the 100% assessed value based on 2 years ago. So that number that they give you, which was the equalization rate, and we used that formula there, knowing that, because we didn't want to promise something we know we couldn't deliver, so we used a 2-year-old 100% value, knowing that in reality, the community should be a lot higher, but we also know that everyone's going through their amnesty days, or whatever it is, tax grievance days. So while we have an idea of where the village is, we don't know until after tax grievances are cleared, because that number probably will come down a little bit. How much, I don't know, and that could change the number. But if anything, it changes it down.
Is that based upon assessment of April 11th?
The what?
Did you get a new rate for the village?
No, no.
You didn't get what?
No, so here's, the number we're using is the 100% assessed value from 2 years ago. So they basically give you a number, and then the state uses a formula for assessed value. We use that number, knowing that in all probability, it's gonna be hopefully significantly higher, but definitely higher than the number that we projected.
I doubt those states that have a grievance there.
Right. No, well, it should stay above this after grievance day, unless they gave a lot of grievance money out, it should still be above this.
Oh, yeah, grievance day.
Yeah. But, and then hopefully after this settles, that you guys get reassessed every other year or every year. It makes life easier.
A lot easier.
There's no more shock after so many years. It's, everything follows a pattern.
Other questions from the board?
So I need your email. I'll get it from Jill, or,
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, and we'll get you a copy of it.
can I just add one more and be short? I respect the explanation on the new positions, I appreciate that. I just want to ask the board more than ask a question here, to please really put, focus on this. If you're gonna add the new positions, focus on those. See if they're saving money. Because sometimes it's not just and if those positions you find, maybe they're not sending money, but you find them super important. Maybe there's some other things we gotta try, something to pay for them. I don't wanna have a situation where we gotta jump into a giant tax cut and have people not supporting the school, get into budgets. It's not necessary. No, everybody thinks everything's, you gotta have this to have a good school, but it's not true.
Chris, in that case, it's gonna be easier to tell, because if we're coughing out this COVID money to get these guys in, the COVID money's going away.
Yeah.
So like you asked before, the big jump, they're gonna see a big jump in the tax levy, only because they're not coming back, so it's gonna hit you right in the face.
Yeah.
So it's very clear, so
It is gonna be very.
Just a little more transparency on that too, Chris. It wasn't that we said, well, let's try and see if they'll pay for themselves and that'll be great. There's a need that was explained to us and expressed to us throughout the budget process for someone to step in and get some of these kids the help they need. And that's why social work was brought up. That's why this director was brought up. John and Mark, two-man team for this school, with all the other duties they have, taking care of that stuff was, I guess, a burden on some of the teachers. So it wasn't just, let's see if this pays for itself. There was a need, this was the opportunity to try it and see if they would.
And we're also looking for,
Like I said, I respect the explanation of the positions. It's not a situation where I'm saying, those positions are stupid, those positions. It's just a simple fact of paying for them, and I don't think ever jamming anything down people's throats is a good idea. Maybe those positions are the ones you need, but maybe, like I said, there's little things you can go back to that have always been on that.
I think we're,
1.5 music, this, that, and the other. There's always ways to cut things out to try to balance things out. Just, I ask you, people wanted the school, yeah, they want the school, but they don't want to be treated like, hey, you want your school, so we're gonna just, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but maybe just try to be conscious about it.
Yeah.
There's still, listen, we still gotta be the way we always been here, fiscally thin.
if these jobs do what we believe they could do, they're gonna save hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That'd be great.
If they don't, then we,
there you go.
and you should be able to see a presentation in about a year, about this time, from the special ed, that person, not only things that they accomplished this year, but maybe programs and savings that they have for next year during the budget process. About kids they're gonna capture back, tuition students they're bringing in from another school, because we set up a program, because we do have the social worker and people choose to come here rather than spending money at BOCES. So there should be hopefully revenues coming in from this position and less expenditures on things that go out. It might even save on some of the transportation costs. We get hit for transportation costs sending kids all the way down to Schenectady.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. So hopefully those positions will, if they do what we think they could do, they're gonna pay for themselves and some.
The
If they don't,
the quantitative analysis will be easy. The qualitative is gonna be more difficult. But, oh, yeah, remember, the impetus is bringing that money back into the building. So
The
that's
other
what-
piece
that's
that
what
will
we're-
help a little bit with that transition as well for that position is that, as you know, Barb Freiburg has been back in this building, filling that role in retirement. And I think throughout this year, she has gotten a handle on the district again and will be able to probably give some suggestions, points, tips to an incoming person to say, here's a place you can hit the ground running to start to line things up. Because just to start a program and build a program, it takes time. It would take somebody a good year to figure that out. If they have the insight and the knowledge base from Barb, who's been here for this last year, that is only going to help with that transition. It's not like we right now are, she has a very good knowledge base of the district and of the needs, and I think that that is going to help with that transition as well. And I can share a little more at any point with anybody with regards to the world of special education as a whole now. The tide has shifted and things have changed tremendously, and so I'm more than happy to have that conversation at any point. Yeah.
We can talk. Cool. Hey, one more question. This is just curiosity.
Yeah.
When you guys were discussing the final salary for the new superintendent, were you worried at all about this number you set and the fact that we don't keep anybody for very long? Was that I just noticed.
Oh, you mean the number?
One of the three candidates we got was at Salem, and I saw that they paid like 160 or something.
Yeah, we're way behind.
Where were you guys?
133?
152 they got it to.
Yeah, they're at 150 something. Everyone else is about 150 now.
What did you guys go at?
We were 130.
133?
So, you know, he knew and the other ones knew what the range was.
Yeah.
No, I know that.
We have to work within our parameters.
I'm just talking about, I mean, was it a topic of discussion about, like, you know, longevity? Like a
It was
little
significantly
stabilization
talked
here?
Yes, absolutely.
It was significantly talked about.
It absolutely was. There was a lot of discussion involved. There was a lot of, you know, we really talked about it a lot.
Even before
We
we
wanted to make sure that we were in an area that was, you know, acceptable to somebody, specifically a new superintendent that was coming in, and that they were more than willing to take whatever the salary was, accept the responsibilities, knowing the kind of situation they're walking into.
Yeah.
And we really took a lot of pains with all the candidates that we were sure that they were gonna stay here for the amount of time that we hired them for.
Which, what that, you know, that could change too.
Sure.
I mean, those numbers were set up, so those who applied knew this is what we're working on.
Yeah.
Everyone also came in, knew they were under tremendous fiscal constraint. We gotta be careful, and they understood that. No one really blocked that, otherwise, if you were gonna block, you wouldn't apply.
You know, we didn't have the,
That 133 is a fair salary. We're looking at
Yeah, I thought so.
I mean, it's,
teachers are making pretty close to 100,000.
Yeah.
And teachers only work 10 months, superintendent works 12.
Right,
Fair salary.
Yeah,
I think you've done a good
I
job.
wasn't looking at it like that. I was just wondering if it was enough. Only because of, you know, the reason we're talking about, is it a 3-year?
3 years.
Yeah.
Can't go too low, because you don't know.
I do appreciate the comment.
You can stay for regular meeting. You're fine.
Well, the only thing I got to say is,
Keep an
at your
eye
next
on-
meeting, I think the president should find a better way for handicapped people to get to a meeting, rather than come through the gymnasium. I had to do it, this gentleman here had to do it, it's not overnight.
Yeah, you don't have to take that from me, Jack.
That's a good point. All right, anything else?
So Toby's gonna give you guys an escort to the elevator, so you don't have to do those stairs. Okay? She's good.
Chris, you got any more?
Do you wanna go to the
You good?
elevator?
Anyone else for the workshop?
I can bring you to the elevator.
We have an elevator. She's gonna bring you to the elevator.
No, I'll walk.
I'm gonna go.
You gonna walk?
Do you know where the elevator is, Chris, in case he wants to do it? It's right down the hall that way. The elevator. There's an elevator right down the hall, in case you take them that way.
Budget units closed at, I got 6:54.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna open the regular board meeting. Please join me for the pledge.
Chris?
Thank you all. Thank you, Patty. Thank you very much.
This one just got on board.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just gonna check with those. Tom, I'm gonna check with those two kids, I think they wanted to speak.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna roll call me. Now, we have them, so you know them. Tom Rose is here. Yeah. Joe Carroll is not here. Chris Miles. Here. Ella Collins. Here. James Dunn. Christina Berger. Here. John Luciano. Here. Abby Superman.
I know I can, I know. You guys in line, right?
Set up 2 weeks ago, but yeah, it's going to need to.
Okay.
Do you have any other comments? Do you have any other comments, Toby?
I do not.
None? All right, we're gonna open our meeting with the community comment section. We do have folks here that are gonna present. Public comment period not to exceed 30 minutes each shall be provided at each business meeting. And ever to provide opportunities for all interested speakers, all speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes during the public comment period. Community members who wish to address the board are requested to complete the speaker request form and submit it to the clerk of the board prior to the meeting. Comments regarding agenda items will be taken first. Speakers are reminded of the 3-minute limit. Should the 30-minute time have expired, additional written comments may be taken prior to the meeting's adjournment. Member of the board of the superintendent will respond to that BOE received and review the comments. Members of the public speak to the board, they shall state their name, address, the name of the organization, or any which they represent, and the agenda item they wish to comment on. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed in public session of the board. The board will not permit interruptions, slanders, remarks, or name calling by the speakers or the audience. We take public comment very seriously and careful notes will be taken. However, the board generally does not respond while the meeting is in public session. I didn't read that for your benefit, guys. You're students and we invited you to the board, so you have more than 3 minutes, as much time as you want, but I do have to read that for a public comment. So why don't you guys come up and let us know what's going on. Just introduce yourselves, please.
Class President 2022, Anthony Toro.
Class Treasurer 2022, Katie Carter.
Good evening, board. We would like to thank you for inviting us to speak about some important dates that are coming up during the last few weeks of June. And we'd just like to update you about them, about what's going on. It's your class trip, cap and gown handout, and graduation.
So on June 13th, we're gonna be doing cap and gown handout after school. And on June 14th, we're gonna have the senior class walkthrough, and the cap and gown photo will be immediately after that. And on the last day, they get cap and decorating. That's the last day to cap decorating.
And we know there were concerns about BOCES students with the handout dates. They are able to pick up their cap and gowns for their BOCES graduation before that date, so just to clear up any concerns about that. June 20th is our senior trip to Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I know. Yep. 6:30 a.m. We would like senior students to come to the school, do bag checks, and just to iron anything out. If someone needs something brought up to them, they can get it brought up to them before we leave on the bus at 7 a.m. We booked Yankee Trails, which we were lucky to be able to. 11:30 a.m. we should be arriving in New Jersey and almost to Point Pleasant, New Jersey. In New Jersey, we will be going to the beach. There will be ropes course, mini golf, arcade, and enjoying the rides of the boardwalk. There will be lunch money and dinner money provided to the students, but they can do whatever they want with it. They don't have to spend on lunch, they will spend on dinner, but if they do want to do personal things, they would have to bring their own money. Then we should be leaving New Jersey around 8 p.m. and getting back the next day at 12:30 a.m. June 21st.
I just have a question about your trip.
Yes.
Is all your classmates participate?
Every classmate is participating unless we made sure that there's no regents that day that will interfere with anything. Such as during the week that almost all senior students have no regents besides the day before graduation when some senior students have the physics regents.
How many students?
That would be around 6 students.
There's a microphone picture, so once you have a picture, there's a CC for hand, raise your hand.
Yeah, everyone get lunch money and dinner money to provide for everyone, but if they do want to do personal things there, they would have to bring their own money, as I said.
How many are attending?
The whole senior class is.
We haven't had a formal, are you going yet?
Yeah.
So we're going June 20th, we're actually off from school that day anyway. Tuesday, no one has regents. As far as we know, every senior should be going, every senior will be paid for. The only money they will actually need to bring is if they want extra spending money. So as far as we know, we haven't heard of any rumblings about not going, so we're hoping to have a full house.
Alright, and as I said, we should be arriving at 12:30 a.m. the next morning. Then graduation day. Graduation should be starting at 6 p.m. unless weather is bad. We will be outside. If it is raining, we will fall back to the auditorium. And we'll be doing it here. And we discussed concerns with Mr. Besson and Mr. Godfrey about traffic out on the front lawn and seeing if we are able to get any speakers in the back, so in case of people hard of hearing in the back, or the traffic gets too noisy, people are able to hear us and hear everyone speak.
That's a good idea.
And we learned today that that letter that was written to Irving Tissue was approved, and we got a $500 donation. We would like to thank Irving Tissue for that generous donation, and we will be getting our flowers from Mr. Becker's wife.
That's awesome. Good job. You guys really thought about this, put it together well. Appreciate all the work you put behind this too. I was proud.
Good.
Yep.
So I know John's probably got his notes, and I have it in my notes. Just so you know, guys, that was one of the best proms I went to. I've gone to a lot. You guys treat each other with respect. You've shared well with each other. You got along. As I said to Mr. Godfrey, it's one of the very few proms I've been to without trauma. You guys were amazing all the way through, from planning to the end. And that Sky Zone, I saw a few of you guys dunk and do the warrior path, and it was amazing. So I'm glad you guys had a great night. We did too, just watching you guys enjoy yourselves.
Thank you.
Any questions that you need from the board?
None at this time.
Anybody have anything else?
Thanks. Good job. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Start with the elementary. On April 14th, I was invited to a book celebration party for Mrs. Smackel's class. They had just finished reading the book titled The One and Only Ivan. And this is based on the real story of a gorilla that spent nearly 30 years in an indoor enclosure in a mall and was eventually donated to a zoo. They invited Mr. Donahue because he had traveled to Uganda and had seen real gorillas. So he shared photographs that he took while he was on a hike there of gorillas they saw up close and personal. Mr. Donahue also shared the amount of preparation and everything it takes to going into this trip, because it's quite limited the amount they get to go and actually experience this, and the ability to find gorillas out there. Some don't find them there. So some great up-close photos. The kids were completely engaged, and it was just a nice way to bring this novel, this project to, it's kind of a success day. So Mr. Donahue, thank you, and it was a lot of fun there. So the kids enjoyed that. We'd also like to thank our PTO. They did a wonderful job for Teacher Appreciation Week. They gave a delicious breakfast one morning. Everything you needed up top there in the boardroom, and the next day or 2 days later, they gave a full lunch to all staff, and then they gave a plant to all the staff. So our PTO very active, and certainly appreciate a lot of hard work by those folks. So nice on that. For the junior senior high, at the end of each sports season, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association honors those teams and individuals that have excelled in the classroom. And congratulations to the varsity softball team for being recognized as a Scholar Athlete team. We'd also like to acknowledge our individual Scholar Athletes, because sometimes they don't get as a team, but they're still individuals. For softball, we had Ali Cutler, Natalie Durkee, Maya Labarge, and Bailey Otero. And for baseball, Michael Glass, Aiden Swears, and Bryce Tyler. So congratulations to all our Scholar Athletes, and that's great. We also had our National Honor Society induction ceremony last Thursday. We were able to have it in person again this year. We held it right here in the auditorium, and we had a wonderful and large group. We had 15 inductees. So we had to make sure we got all the robes and everything, and if you're here, the stage was full of a lot of great students there. And I want to congratulate the students and their families for all their support. It was nice having the families out here, and great having the students up here, and we have a lot of good leaders in the school. So that was a nice night for them. And let me see. Nope, we have one more. Our senior prom that we were talking about there. This past Saturday, students met here. We got all organized, and we had Coach E bus them up to the barn up in Hudson Falls. That was a beautiful venue. They had been up there the day before, the night before, and decorating all that. It looked great. From there, we had dinner, dancing. Before that, we had an outside grand march where they came right down to the red carpet. They all got introduced to all the parents and family members. It just happened to be beautiful, and the wind stopped, and they were outside, so a nice venue there. They came back in, finished the dinner, and then we were bussed up to the Sky Zone, and they had a lot of fun. We had parents and chaperone there. Sky Zone had a lot of folks they brought in, and the kids really had a great time. It's quite a thing up there for them. I hadn't been there yet, I'd heard about it, but the kids are really had a good time. And they went right till 1 in the morning, and like Mr. Besson said, no issues. But if you see the students in their class, that doesn't surprise us. Just some great news there. So that's what I have for success. And thank you.
He's going to join in on this phone as that extra line. So these go, I guess, some recognitions to go over. Congratulations to valedictorian in class of 2022, Bryce Taylor. Bryce Taylor, yes, exactly. The salutatorian is Miranda Sardinas. And then we have a number of students who, Anthony Toro, who presented, is receiving the Community Service Award from the Adirondack Area School Boards Association. the following students are recognized for being scout athletes for spring sports sessions by attaining an average of 90 or better. They also received pins from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association to honor this achievement. In softball, we had Holly Cutler, Natalie Jerky, Maya Labarge, Bailey Otero. For baseball, we had Michael Glass, Aiden Swears, and you're right this time, Bryce Tyler. And we have certificates probably to show students that. Perfect.
No presentation. Finance committee met this evening, went over cash flow report, cafeteria report. Anybody want to chime in about that?
All looking good. The other one that we had reviewed was the fund balance projection, and that's looking good, and like we'll be on target.
Can I get your permission to jump over to a discussion item, building projects, before we go on with the rest of the agenda? Sure. We have online two associates from Bernadette Valentin's office. And what they're going to talk to us about is the 2025 building project. You don't plan the building project, you do it. So they're going to go over a few things with us. We're going to go to a slideshow. And can you guys, your mics work over there? Is that you, Sarah? Sarah?
Sarah?
All right. Okay, we hear you. I'm going to put your slide up, okay? Hang on. Somehow it went away. There you go. There it is. All right, your slide's on the screen. So yours, Sarah.
Okay, we have Sarah for the Karen Merlin also down through there.
Sarah, your sound is a little off your mic. You might need to be, if you're on speaker or something, it's muffled.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, loud and clear now.
Okay. I'm gonna take over Sarah had so I'm going to take over Sarah. So as Sarah was saying, we're the Middle High School District. Karen Moon, I'm Vice President of the company, and Sarah is financial analyst for the company. And of course, the first slide that we want to talk about, like Mark said, is about the potential next capital project votes that you're looking through your building condition survey, you're going through to come up with some scope, to kind of determine which project work that will be done. So the first slide showed, after we kind of talk about building condition survey, the first thing is, so how financial would you potentially put a project in for this as well? So this first slide takes a look at where you kind of forget where your existing debt is and if there's being dropped in debt service, along with where your wealth material is the taxpayer. So what this first page shows is an outline for the next starting 21-22 out to the 2035 year, what debt does the have existing? And as you read across this, you'll see column A is your co-principal, column B is your total interest, whereby column C is the put together to get your total debt service.
Hey, hi there. Can you slow down a little bit because there's like lag and you're talking over yourself?
Okay.
Thanks.
I will talk slower, sorry.
Thanks, yeah, it's just a lag on the.
Mark, can you just
So,
follow?
when you look at this page, like I said, it's all your existing debt.
And
And when we actually read across, column A would be is your principal interest. Column C is the total together.
And
And what column C is that number that is budgeted in your appropriation side of your budget, so that's your full principal interest. Column D is the estimated bill gain against all that, all your projects outstanding. Whereby column F is the difference between the expense minus the gain, so that's your estimated local share
or
or levy.
As
As you can see, in your case, as a real cost,
your
your column B, total debt service, is a little bit lower than your estimated billing gain.
so
So that your column is a positive cash flow coming in.
Okay.
Okay.
Stop
So stop
there.
there.
As
As
we
you
look
look
at a
at a potential impact of financing for a project,
you look at
you look at a couple things besides just the estimated local share drop.
We
We also look at where your appropriation side as well.
So
So as we discuss and work with the district,
if
if you look at your column C
for
for total debt service,
in the
in the 25-26 year,
you're
going to have a drop going down, so that's where your first drop in appropriations is. So
what
we're looking at is you're going to want to bring in a project at that point
where your
where appropriations drop,
and
and
then
then along with that,
we can
we can
see
see
with
the column F,
what
what
size
of
project
project might fit in with using that transfer aid,
so that
so that there's no additional impact to the district.
So from
So from a timing standpoint, as Mark was saying, the 25-26 year is where we want to look financially and potentially to see what we can bring in a project.
I'm going to
stop there for a second. Any questions?
Yeah, because there's been some like audio problems, we're gonna probably request you guys come to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Probably the best.
Yeah, it'd be best, but I think we can see on the chart where the discussion is, and we have that other handout. So they'll know at least what Greg and Charles are doing, and what we'll be briefing Richard on. We'll start the movement, but we'll have a better presentation next month when you're here in person and you're not echoing. Okay?
So with those handouts, I mean, that's kind of where we look, is what your scope's going to be and then financially, how can that be built into your budget and impact to the taxpayers.
Right.
So
Okay.
if there's anything else that
I apologize.
would have you can review, if there's other information to have.
I'll get you copies of these slides.
Yep.
But the big number she's trying to show
Is, yeah,
is right.
is it that 529?
Yeah, that's over there,
Yeah.
because it comes off. And if you back into the project right there at the 529 mark,
Yeah.
it has no effect on the tax
So that's what
levy
we
or
said.
budget.
So that we can
It's a
schedule
neutral, so it becomes tax neutral.
Okay.
And that's when we can start getting a lot of things done that are on our 5-year plan.
Okay.
So both Greg, Charles met with and Craig met with our architect to review what was in the old plan that wasn't done, and there's some roofs and a few other things. And we're looking at some outdoor things that need to be fixed for safety purposes.
Sure.
And we're trying to see what we could back into that needs to get done. And we're trying to stay in that number so that the following year, so we need to go out for a vote. And I think we figured it was January of 24. And that way you have 18 months to go to SED to get everything approved. So that you could be breaking ground July 1st, 25-26 school year. So that these things all start to match up. So you'll get your bonding and everything done prior to that year, so everything marries. So there's a whole, and I have another slide to hand out to you, but you want to make sure everything goes jointly, so there's no spikes and there's no troughs and then spikes again. Because that's hard on,
homeowners and all right, so I think we're gonna take it from here. Sorry to keep you guys around for so long, and we'll talk about the next meeting, okay?
We'll see you in the next meeting.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, so now we'll go back to this one.
You have that. Oversee this time, this yellow timeline.
So that goes.
Right, so that's what goes with this presentation. You had the building condition survey, and we're working on that, again with the architect. Then we want to align this, which is why we showed you this chart. So we're looking at the vote between January and March 2024. We're hoping to get New York, even doing that a year out, we're hoping to get the approval from the New York State Education Department with all the things that need to be done by 2025. And we want the new debt service is needed for the 25-26 fiscal year, so that way there's no existing debt drop off. That way things stay tax neutral. And the goal is no additional tax impact, which is the goal. Right now, our building aid ratio is 95.8%. So that gives you an idea of what we probably get back into on the project. I think it was somewhere around the $5 million mark or so. So, and the use, and if we have any capital reserve, or if we have a capital reserve fund and we can fund some of our early expenses over the next 2 years based on, advice from Charlene, Charles, Greg, besides just transportation reserve, if there's a way to feed that reserve to mitigate some of the early costs from this, it'll enable us to get more product. So it's sort of like, when you close on the house, if you roll your closing costs in, you're getting less house, but if you have the closing costs in your pocket, you can get a little bit more house.
And who are these people that?
These are the financial planners that Fort Edward has been using, and pretty much every school district I've ever worked in uses.
Mark, what's the expediency with state ed return? I remember for a long time, we put something in and never, they give you a timeline.
That's why we're doing an 18-month timeline.
Okay, and have things cleared out down there with COVID, with not as much going on? Because that process is brutally backed up.
It's still a brutal department, and it's not their fault. There's a lot of, they all take a long time. They usually take.
I know the whole process, but something lately, in the last how many years?
Yeah.
8 years has been even worse than.
Usually takes a year, but we're planning for more. We don't want to be quite sure.
So there's no significant change.
As far as committees go, I don't see any schedule.
I'd like to have an athletic committee meeting just because of the potential merger that we're talking about.
We're going to be voting on it today.
Right, but I still would like to, I think I would like to schedule an athletic committee.
To talk about mergers?
Yeah.
Sure.
We used to do personnel committee too, between seasons. We used to talk about the coach evaluation and things like that. That's something you guys are seeing.
We have not done that in a number of years that I'm aware of. At least personally, I have not been evaluated since I've been coaching.
We used to do that a while ago. I don't know if you guys are still doing it. So there used to be a meeting between seasons just to talk about the coaching and the success of the seasons.
That's a good idea.
It's typically a personnel, but sometimes it's merged between athletic and personnel.
Yes, I like that.
Right.
Just to kind of hash out
Mark will
details,
throw out
make
some
sure
dates.
that everybody's on the same page.
Yep. For Mark will throw out some dates for the
Okay.
athletic, and then we'll see what works for you. And do you have a date for the negotiations committee?
Right now, the association, the Charles and Greg are working on locking down the different categories.
Awesome. All right. Moving on, superintendent's report, you're up.
So, as you heard from the first presentation, there's a budget vote May 17th, and it's from noon to 8 p.m. in person in the main lobby. Also going on that day, there will be an art show, a technology show, and a concert. So hopefully people come in and enjoy themselves, and some of our people who never really get an opportunity to come in have an opportunity to see some of the great things the kids are doing here. The absentee ballots are available right now with Mrs. Bissett, and I know she's handed out a few already. And then there's the principal search. John and I are working with Richard on the principal search, as he's the one that's going to be working with the principal. So we have him involved in every step of the way. And he's actually, we're working for him right now. So he's basically selected the order of candidates that he wants. He'll be here with us on Thursday. We're going to go to the first round. Then a week later, he's going to, along with us, he's going to cut it down to, I believe, possibly 4 candidates. And then those candidates will be coming in for 1-hour interviews with a mixed group of the community and stakeholders that we've been working with. So teachers.
Give me numbers. How many to start with?
We started with about 14. And I think, Toby, we're interviewing about how many now?
I'm gonna say 9, 10.
So we talked at 9? Yeah. And then we'll knock it down to 4, and then the final 2 will come back for a meeting with the board to interview along with Richard. And what we've done is we've told every candidate before they've decided to come or not what our range is in salary, and they all agreed that are here. You know, if you were offered this, you know, so we don't want any surprises. We'll select somebody and they walk away. So we've been doing our due diligence. We look like there's some early risers in the pile. There's some names that we know. There's a lot of people from different areas that are trying to get back home. So it's an interesting group. John and I will meet with Richard on Thursday. We'll be doing all day. So that's the principal's search. And then basically it was a kind of report this month.
We put it all
Yep.
in the board,
Yes,
the board.
the third round.
That's the third round.
Can't be clear.
Okay.
And yes, we say,
And the other thing is we're probably going to ask for a special board meeting to do that. Because we're going to be interviewing them before, but we would like to hire them by July 1st. So they can give their 30 days notice to whatever school district they're in. So they can be here with Richard on July 1st, ready to rock and roll. John?
Okay, our elementary book fair is in full swing. This year we were able to put them in the old computer lab. We had it all cleared out and cleaned out. It's a great space for them. They can set up all their displays. Once the PTO members who run it are done, they can just lock the door and they don't have to lock everything back into the cabinet. So they seem to really like it, and it's right off the lobby. The kids just go in, they each have their time. They'll be able to look at the books, check it out, and then purchase whatever they want. So a really good space, and I think the PTO was real happy with that. So we've got that for them. That will conclude. The last day will be Saturday, May 14th, and the PTO will be putting on a family fun day, and that will kind of conclude the book fair. So, yeah, exciting things. Our kindergarten roundup will start. It will be this Tuesday, starting tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it will run for the week. As you know, it's quite an undertaking. We have lots of people that are involved in there. We run it up in the library. That space seems to work well. It has for years. And this will be staff will get a chance to meet the parents and our incoming students, run them through some activities, and welcome them to Fort Edward. So the little ones, so we're excited to have them here. I don't know at this point, but I know they have enough for the 3 full days. So yeah, yeah, it's a good sign. At the high school level, last week, 4 of our juniors took the AP U.S. History exam as part of their distance learning course that we received from Hartford School. This is a rigorous exam that tests all the content and the knowledge. So this is how they finish with their exam to see how they're doing. They have, if they score level 3 or 4, they have the potential to earn college credits. So we're hoping some of our students do well, get the college credit, and do well in the exam. They still have to go on to take the U.S. History Regents, but this is the AP one. So we hope our students have good luck and those grades will come back to us.
Do you know how many can do the AP exam?
I don't know. We had 4, so I think, yeah. Yes, I think everybody was in there for us, all 4 teams. Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Greg, can you mute your mic, please?
That's all. Yeah. This year, we start our Regents early. We'll start our Regents with the U.S. history. It's the new one, and it starts on June 1st. So typically, as you know, we start, June 15th. So June 1st, we kick it off, then we have a gap, and then we do start it in June 15th. This is the first Regents. Okay. No, that's fine. This is the first Regents we've taken since 2019. So it's been a while on there. This is a brand new Regents, and this is our first look at it. So we do know this much. We know that multiple choice questions will be reduced. Typically, they had 50 questions, multiple choice questions in the pack. In the past, it's been reduced to 28 this year. Increased emphasis on the writing. Essays, and particularly the short answers. So they really want to see what our students can do in the short answers. There is no old test option for transition. So you have to take it. Not like how the math, they phase it in. You can take the old math or the new. This is it. This is a one test. There's no transition test either. So this is the new one here. Mr. Prindle did attend a workshop at Queensborough High School offered midwinter. He went up there for a full day, and they discussed strategies and also structure, which they could release for taking the test. And although there certainly will be some growing pains this year, if you know Mr. Prindle, he's got them up there, he's got them reviewed, and they'll be as well prepared as we can for this test, and they'll have to see how it goes. So kind of exciting stuff and a new start for the U.S. history. Awesome. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, Regis scoring.
Yeah, we'll do it right in house here. Yeah, we can do it. We'll do the
Just us, we have enough here?
Yeah, we have enough here, and we don't have, to go with other schools, we don't have enough kids that. Yeah, so we'll train them to get right in house.
Right, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Yes.
Can I say something, please? Taylor, can you stand up? I'd like to recognize a Fort Edward grad who just passed the bar, and unbelievably, the first time, which is great.
You're up, sir.
So we have it.
Oh, did you do a camera swipe around?
I tried to way at Jack and Taylor, so we're down to the organization. Yeah. So we have discussion items. One of them is the reorganizational meeting. So traditionally, it's held on the first day of the month. However, our first day of the month is a Friday. Also, July 4th is a Monday. And then July 5th, a lot of people are going to be out on vacation or whatever. So we were hoping plus we have a new business official, business manager that are going to be taking over the reins, superintendent taking over the reins, principal taking over the reins, hopefully. So we're thinking of the organization meeting is not a business meeting following. If everything's printed out, Toby and I have already been working on it. Shouldn't take you more than 15, 20 minutes. Probably the longest thing that will take place is you guys figuring who's president and vice president. So that meeting, if it's held on July 1st, these guys get to work. You'll have another meeting like around August 11th or something, and that's an important meeting because by then these guys have been on the ground. They've hired probably a secretary, all of those missing positions that John and I aren't hiring because we're going to do the postings for them after the budget, but we're going to let the new people hire them because that's who's going to be working with them. But we can set up interviews for them the first week that Richard and whoever are here to get that rolling, and then to be able to bring to the board whoever on July 11th.
So July 11th, yeah, you said August.
Right.
So July 11th would be right.
Yeah, July
11th is Monday.
is a Monday, right? And then you would install everybody in their positions on July 1st.
So a meeting on July 1st in addition to the, yes.
Right.
Right.
So, is anyone out of town on July 1st?
Yep.
You're out of town as well,
It's a Friday, yeah.
Right.
I wanted to see if you're gonna be out.
No.
Okay, so it's
Just plus. I mean, can we do it? Is it, are we out of?
No, that's.
I'm saying we do it on the 30th.
If it's not, you have to start by, it has to be in July, it has to be by the 15th, I believe. I put the policy. The difference is those guys aren't, nobody's been sworn in or.
Alright, so it's gotta be on Friday 4th.
Friday 1st.
I'm sorry, Friday 1st. Everyone's okay, other than Chris? You're not here.
I know, that's in the word.
And
that would be when we would swear in the numbers. But we would swear in the
New members, except for that one.
But there's one right.
Because there's one that would be the third place person, would be the one that's filling the rest of the Anita seat.
Right, but no, even your other members get sworn in.
Yes.
That person might be sworn in ahead of time.
Right, true.
Right, so two sworn.
So you got swear-ins, you got officers, and you got committees. And technically, the committees don't have to have in that meeting, right?
No, that would all be the next meeting.
So we could have committees set up
On the
an actual board meeting, so we could get it, so it's gonna be half an hour, so we can start the meetings.
Right.
Does that work? It's let's see if we can do it early, folks that are leaving town. Is 5:30 okay with everybody? Yeah, 5:30 on, the 1st of July? Actually, we'll be here, you okay for that day?
Are you making mark on that date?
You good?
Yeah.
No matter what.
So,
We'll have 3 seats open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so 5:30, July 1. Okay with you, Tony?
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
The next week.
And then the 11th.
And then the 11th.
The 11th is regular.
6:30, right?
Well, we'll do finance first.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. All right, next on the agenda, discussion item 2 is the annex building and garage. So some of you folks are very familiar with the situation, some might not be, but the annex building that's located over there by the parking lot has been used sparingly by the school over the past, I don't know, couple of decades. I was in it probably more than any other person in this building, just doing drama. That's where our crop, our paint department was and all that stuff in the annex building, but it's really not used for anything else. It's a strong foundation building from what we're told, but there is concerns about asbestos and other things that are going on there. And eventually it's going to run down into disrepair, and the school is going to have to either A, spend a lot of money to fix it, or B, spend some money to bulldoze it. The Historical Association and members of the village board and the mayor have expressed interest over the years in assuming the building and making it a storage room for a lot of historical artifacts and papers and things that are located on the floodplain currently. So I've been asked to read a letter from the Historical Association to the board regarding the situation, and then we can talk about the process moving forward. So it's addressed to the board. Over the past few years, we've experienced changing weather conditions across our country. The lower part of the village of Fort Edward, where our town and village offices are located, are within the floodplain of the Hudson River. A break in the dam on the upper Hudson would send a wall of water inundating and flooding the lower part of our village and town. For many years, several residents have discussed the idea of acquiring the old annex building as a potential site for archival storage, because currently all historic records are located in the floodplain. The town and village also supports the old Fort Fort House Museum, which is a storehouse of local historical materials. Moving the main historical archive off of the bank of the Champlain Canal, would do much to preserve the many important historical records. Because the excess moisture at that site creates climate issues, it's extremely costly to monitor everything with air conditioning and dehumidification located between two bodies of water. Use of the structure by the town and village of Fort Edward for record storage and meeting space would only require a minimum number of parking spaces, maybe 3 or 4, dedicated parking spaces during the daytime hours. The building is extremely sound, mostly of masonry construction with wooden floors and double hung windows. There's a lot of good material that can be restored and repurposed to house town and village records in a modern day archival storage facility. Making this structure available to our municipal government will go a long way to preserve our local heritage, which does include a significant collection of the Fort Edward Union Free School District covering the years 1848 to date. So that's from the Historic Association and also the mayor and expert to read it. So there's a lot of interest in that taking place. Again, the school doesn't really use it. The drama club used it recently, and when the building project was going on, they housed the foreman in the front of the building. But the school doesn't have the money to repair the building. So if we were to consider this, there's a couple of things that have to happen. This evening, we have to vote majority to apply for a subdivision. We can't offer it to anyone while it's still part of the main plot of the school. So we would ask for a subdivision to sub that plot out, and then we would vote whether to put it to a public vote and go from there, yes.
After you subdivide it, do you have the option of putting it up for sale?
I'm sorry?
To the public? After you subdivide it, do you have an option of putting it up for sale to the public, for someone in the public, rather than to give it to the village of Fort Edward? Source of income.
Sure, once it's subdivided, the school has an option to do several things with it. One of them would be to sell it if we wanted someone from a commercial, whatever aspect to buy something so close to the school. But yeah, but the only way to even do anything like that, give it to the village or anything, would be to subdivide it first. So we've got to have a vote to subdivide. That doesn't mean anything. If we don't vote to put it to the public, or the public votes it down, it still belongs to the school. It's just subdivided. But that's the first step of all this. Then we would vote once the subdivision is approved by the planning board, assuming it's approved by the planning board. Then we would vote to put it to a public vote, and the ultimate decision is with that. So just be prepared to vote on that motion shortly. It's been in talks for 5, 6, 7 years.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The subdivision includes the annex building and the little red garage building that's over there?
Yeah, the one with half a roof.
Yeah.
Right, but the subdivision that we're talking about tonight would be that area.
Because that would give them, they would have to level that garage,
Yeah.
and that would be their 2 parking spots.
And if and when it came to the point of putting it out to public vote, this kind of piggybacks on what Taylor said. Can the community be given the option of we gift it or we try to sell it to somebody, or do we as a board make the decision that
there'll be
our suggestion would be to put it out to the community to vote for, to gift it?
It all gets voted out to the community. The board can't give it.
I understand.
The community has to approve of whether it's a
Right.
sale. The sale will be a little bit more difficult because there'll be some, and even with the village getting access to the building, there's gonna, it's also installed in the plot down the road, there'll be some right-of-way issues for both the historical society or if it was a private person. So there's those things too. I mean, we're subdividing the plot, but there'll be some other things that start to pop up down the road. But we're trying to just
You can write things in conveyances too, in certain ways that you can get around those.
Yeah.
So this is the first step in the process.
Some of it has to go to SED, so some of those things get a little weird. So, for example, when I was at another school district, we had a museum adjacent to the school community, and they were looking just to be able to use our bus loop and use a gate, and then they were gonna just blacktop their thing, but just to use our bus loop took 2 years of state education department to give them permission to use our bus loop. And they could only use it at certain times, they couldn't move back and forth that, you know, basically the museum had no right to the bus loop during bus loop time, specific hours during the day.
The other thing in consideration to visit the village whatever transaction is applied, it's as is. With any kind of other ownership, there's declarations of whatever's in there and things like that would probably muddy the waters a little bit, so, and the benefit of it too, it still remains for the school use. So there's a community room in there, there's meeting space in there, maybe the drama or club would use that building for whatever reason, so it wouldn't be shut out to the school either.
Right, it wouldn't be a taxpayer expense because those things that need to be done, there's some repair work that needs to be done. They have the ability to raise money, get grants and put that money into, so that wouldn't be coming out of taxpayers' pockets either.
That's.
And it benefits the entire community.
So that's just something to say, good points.
But down the road, it's another board that's gonna make the determination. Right now, this board is only supervisors. We already did the senior class activities. Yeah, project, this is a project we did.
They're going to come in person.
So sports merger, Argyle, which is later in the agenda, basically, we were approached by Argyle and we had a tough girls basketball season where we didn't have a varsity. We only had about 4 or 5 girls that would continuously at games. And if someone got in foul trouble, we were finishing the games with 4 girls. Well, Argyle was in the same dilemma. So both of us wanted to build our programs back again. And we both feel that girls basketball was a major sport here in Fort Edward. It was a major sport in Argyle. The thing is getting the kids back involved. We lost 2 years of modified and JV type sports to get kids to varsity. And then when we start putting freshmen up against seniors in other schools, they get frustrated, they think this isn't my sport, they quit, they never get the chance to develop at the JV or modified level correctly. So by merging with them, we're going to be able to offer 3 levels of basketball. So Argyle basically already approved the merger. We've merged with Argyle before. It's been a good marriage. We'll have our own coaches there, our girls. We're hoping to have, like I said, varsity, a JV, and a modified.
And all 3 would be merged.
Well, the modified may not be. It depends on numbers. If our numbers are good in both schools, there would be a need to. So that's where the numbers start to show. But if the numbers are there that we do need to, we should. So right now the merger is for all 3 levels. But if all of a sudden, November 2022, we see the current 6th graders and 7th graders signing up like man. I mean, the current, 6th graders and 7th graders signing up in numbers that we didn't expect, and we can float our own team. We want to make sure our girls get as much playing time as possible, so I would recommend it. I'm not going to be here, but I would recommend it at the modified level we stay independent. We definitely know we have to need to merge at JV, and we definitely know we need to merge at varsity. So.
And is this similar to the merger that we have with Hartford for baseball, where that's 10 boards, it's 50-50? Or is this a merger where our girls are going to be wearing Argyle uniforms, or Argyle's going to be wearing Fort Edward?
So this is the plan. Argyle to spend a lot of money on the uniforms. In our budget, in our cycle, we are planning to buy uniforms for Fort Edward. So neither school really wants to spend money on Flying Scots or whatever they are. All right? So our belief is we're going to call it Fort Edward Argyle, Argyle Fort Edward. One of the things that we did discuss is possibly playing with the Argyle uniforms when we're at a home game in Argyle. We're at Fort Edward uniforms when we have our home game in Fort Edward. And then taking turns every other away game. One away game is Argyle uniforms, the other away game is Fort Edward. When we were talking about this, we thought it might even give a little bit more identity to our community members that attend the games, because they'll see forts on the uniforms. It will hopefully revive the town, the village, and our, people who don't have kids in school to come out to see a fort game. Same thing over in Argyle. Let them see their Scots. And then when we're on the road, it doesn't matter if we're wearing white. If we're wearing. Because pretty much the home team wears, we'll call it
white. The home teams wear white.
So we'll wear our white at home, and some games we'll wear blue away, some games we'll wear maroon away.
I just wanted to clarify, make sure that it wasn't just one that's taking over
No.
the other.
No,
So it is a 50-50,
Yeah,
just figuring
no,
out where the.
we have a good relationship with them, and that's the goal. I mean, it's not a sport where we're just sending one kid over and they're playing.
Okay.
Somebody has a flying scout uniforms, usually do it for soccer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Cool. Any other questions? All right. So moving on to the consent agenda. Next, the approval of minutes from the board meeting held April 11, 2022, April 14, 2022, April 26, 2022, and April 27, 2022. That was a busy month. I need a motion. Amanda and Christina, and discussion.
There was just one piece that I had chatted with Toby about on the April 11th regular meeting minutes. There was one piece in the motion that had been pulled out about the transportation equipment maintenance reserve. The piece that was in there about on June 13th, 2022, the Board of Education will resolve to transfer money from the excess fund balance. That piece we have pulled out because that didn't totally got it. So that we pulled out of the minutes.
Yep.
So with that condition, all in favor? Good?
Thank you for catching.
Sure.
I need a motion for B, C, and D under consent agenda. Chris and Patty. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, action items. Need a motion to approve the CSE, CPSE recommendations as included in the board packets. Christina and Amanda, any discussion? All in favor? Motion to set the date of the 2022-2023 reorganizational meeting for 5:30 July 1st, with the regular meeting to follow directly after the conclusion of the reorganizational meeting.
We're not doing the regular.
Correct, I have to modify that. Okay, so hold on, so I need a motion to set the 2022-2023 reorganizational meeting for 5:30 on July 21st.
No,
July 1st.
July 1st, no. It's been a long day. July 1st, 2022, period.
Yes, motion.
Amanda,
So,
Ella, discussion.
Toby, do we put out the board calendar in the June meeting, or do we put the board calendar out in the July meeting?
I think we do it in July.
Okay, so then,
We'll do it in
We'll
July.
make the 11th meeting, yeah, so at that meeting, July 1st meeting, we'll make we'll publish the annual meeting schedule.
with the act?
All right, we got two motions on the table, all in favor? Good. Motion to approve a refund of real property tax in the amount of $1,072 to Virginia Henry per the application received from the Washington County Office of Real Property for parcel 163.17-2-23. Refund is owed due to a clerical error in the town assessor's office. Need a motion. James, any discussion? All in favor?
What was the first?
Patty.
Patty.
Motion to approve the athletic mergers with the Argyle CSD for the 2022-2023 school year for girls basketball, all levels, and bowling, all levels.
Should we have all, oh, God, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question? Are you guys allowed to answer?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a question concerning this?
Yeah.
I heard.
Let me get the motions first.
Get the motion.
Amanda, Christina. Okay.
So, Mark, if I heard Mark correctly, all three levels, but in November, you get
outpouring of support from the girls will say that want to come in. My understanding from the girls modified is there's 10 to 12 coming from the 5th and 6th grade levels that can play modified. So you guys can pull back the modified team, but what if Argyle doesn't have enough girls?
Then we'll work, if they don't have enough girls, we would let them come play.
You let them come, okay.
We wouldn't leave them in.
Okay.
You can't do that and be a good partner.
No, I just, from a coaching perspective, in the last few years, I've seen the numbers go up and down. And just from my perspective, there's always a reason why the numbers go up and down. And eliminating all three programs when you have a group that could be coming in sometimes can be detrimental, as you said later on, because there's a little bit of a difference merging over there. And instead of boosting numbers following years, you end up losing more because those kids just don't get encouraged from both sides. So I'm just looking at the numbers from what I saw coaching this year. The boys, the first 2 days that the boys had, we had 13 kids. By my 4th day, we had 19. So I just, so it's, I think from a coaching perspective, it's not just, I see the school seeing that. I will tell you for myself, Mr. Boucher, my brother, we literally, even a couple of the other parents solicited kids to get their interest and then maintain that through the year. So I get Argyle's having an issue, but I just want to make sure that we're not hurting our own programs as well later on.
I think we only had 10 total girls for all 3 levels for girls this year.
This year, yes, right, but I know coming in, again, from being on both sides, I had a year at the JV level where I had 7 girls. And then the following year, I had 11 in the varsity, so it goes up and down, but part of that I took on myself because I didn't do enough to solicit the interest. And then when they did come out, it was how do I maintain that? So from a coaching perspective, I just look at it and say, are we as coaches doing enough to bring that group in, and what else are we doing to maintain that program? So if we've got 13 or 11 kids at the 5th and 6th grade level this year, those are all going to be 7th and 8th graders coming out that may want to do modified, and if we eliminate it, they may not, that's 10 or 11 girls you may not have in the program.
Yeah, and in all our conversations, we're looking forward to creating independent programs. Hence why we're keeping our uniforms. We're hoping within 2 years, we're actually going against each other again like days of old.
It's kind of to fill the gap.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a year-to-year decision, all of the sports mergers. And then the thing that's kind of frustrating, or I don't know if it's frustrating, but the reality of it is the state sets the timeline as to when you have to approve these types of mergers for winter sports. So you're making decisions based on, we don't know for sure what our numbers are going to look like, but I think it's more of a trying to keep as many doors open as possible with as much flexibility as possible, also looking at those numbers once the numbers actually come out. But definitely trying to get them the two to be on their own again. We've always been, I was an Argyle grad, and so, there's always been good rivalry there, and we'd love to have it from there. Question about the bowling, is that a new merger, or is that always? That's always been. I thought so, but I couldn't.
Yeah, but we got to approve it and file it.
Yep, thank you.
First, you have to round it.
Yep, okay.
Discussion, good?
So Mark, the understanding's there from Argyle that girls basketball all levels, should it be as or if needed? Should we add a little addendum on there, or just leave it like it is?
Just leave it as it is, so we don't mess up the add on there to leave that section too.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Seeking the subdivision of the school plot with the village for Fort Edward in Washington County. Motion. James and John. Any further discussion? Once we thought of the application, we'll look at the application. All right. All in favor?
Yes, sorry, I'm in favor. Could we get a copy of the letter that you got?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just have Martha's name.
I can email it.
Yeah.
Is everyone, saying no? Jeez, my brain's scattered today.
Everybody,
Okay, well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know what you're trying to say.
Thank you.
favor, in favor.
All right. Let's see. Personnel, all appointments are subject to change and compensation proration pending emergency school closings and required reductions in force. All coaching appointments are made pending completion and verification of all required coaching credentials, with the stipend per FPTA contract commensurate with experience and no other salary or benefits. All coaching extracurricular appointments are subject to reduction and compensation proration pending final student enrollment numbers and pending the outcome of any potential mergers and emergency school closings. Need a motion to approve the appointment of Lynn Mickens as substitute nurse for the SASTA contract. Amanda and Christina, any discussion?
She was previously here, I
Yeah.
believe. So,
Mark?
she was here and kind of covering for, until we have the.
No, she was our.
She was.
Yeah.
And then, the job was a little too physical for, she had some reason.
Okay.
But she's willing to come back and be our sub, and she'll be with us as of, I think, tomorrow, while we're doing kindergarten roundup, and we're very excited to have her come and our kids.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yep.
All good? Motion to approve the appointment of Amanda Lucas as summer program middle school teacher, July 6 to July 28, 2022, per the FETA contract. Christina and Patty, any discussion?
Yeah, can we, Mark, do you know, is it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
The first week is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, July 5th and 6th.
And then every other week is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
And it's actually be July 5th, right?
Just modify that to July 5th, please.
And then every week after that is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Make sure that.
And do we know the times, is it 8 to 12?
No. 11, 8 to 11.
8 to 11?
How many kids do we expect?
Probably similar to last year.
Yeah, they're gonna try to do.
Similar to last year, with 60.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
They are, they are.
Thanks, Tom.
Was it 60 that we had last?
60 or 16?
Probably 16. Wouldn't have been 16. They had
To what?
quite a few.
I didn't hear that number.
No, it's gonna be, July 6th and 7th. That's the 6th and 7th is correct. 6th, it's a 2-day week. Yeah, no.
All right, so the 5th, they don't have.
No, not the day after the 4th.
Okay,
So.
And they are going 6th and 7th on the first week. Then they're
This
going
is not
12,
the
13,
original.
14 the second week, 19, 20, 21 the
Okay.
third week, 26, 27, 28 and the fourth week. And
So
it's 3
this
hours
is-
long.
This is a program that we
Same as last
always
summer.
offer.
Yeah, no, not always, yeah.
So was it new with COVID money, or is this
Yes,
something that we
yes.
offered prior to? No,
COVID
new
money.
with COVID money, okay. And, middle school entails 6th, 7th, 8th, just 7th and 8th grades?
7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th
6th grade is coming next.
Okay. Oh, yeah, 6th grade is down there. Okay, so this is 7th and 8th grade. Do they cover all the cores in this, or is it just ELA and math?
Right now, we got ELA, math, and social studies, and one of them might peel off a little science.
Is it, by teacher recommendation, or is it open to anybody?
Or is it if they did not pass a class that they?
It's mostly teacher recommendation.
Okay, just curious.
And it's mostly kids in need.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, how many kids were last year? 60?
No.
Now, I was thinking the enrichment program with the elementary, I misspoke. I was thinking the elementary program, this is the middle school.
No, this is gonna be both. This is
Both.
grades 1 to 8, you're gonna be voting on here.
So middle school teachers, just because that's what.
Right, she's just first.
Right, our 9 through 12s we'll have to go to Granville Regional Summer School.
Right.
Because we don't have the capacity to do an in-house accredited type summer school that counts towards the Carnegie credits.
The middle school ones though are more, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, more academic based.
Yeah.
Whereas the elementary are still academic based, but more enrichment based as well. Would I be accurate in that assumption?
Yeah, same as last.
Sorry, I didn't realize it had gone up that. I didn't realize it covered that many grades last year.
It went all the way to 12th grade.
Oh. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry.
All good? So it is July 6th, that's the correct date.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All good? Very good, Donna. You're very far away. Motion to approve the appointment of Nelson Chase as summer program middle school teacher, July 6th, July 28th, per FETA. Patty and Christina? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Chase, and Amanda Lucas as well. Appreciate you stepping up. Motion to approve the appointment of Amber Beeman as summer program middle school teacher, July 6th, July 28th, the rate per FTA contract. Christina. James. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Ms. Beeman. Motion to approve the appointment of Marianne Stark as summer program 6th grade middle school teacher, July 6th, July 28th, at the rate per FTA contract. Motion. Christina? Chris? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Good. Thank you for Ms. Stark.
You could move to a consent, motion to approve.
All right, so
11 through.
kind of like this. Okay. I'll do it. So I need a motion for. Okay. All right. Need a motion to approve the appointment of Stephanie Bruce as summer program elementary teacher, July 6th to 28th, rate per FTA contract. Patty. Amanda. He's getting around. All right.
This is it for me.
It's her last meeting, she must be. I know why it's for me.
Discussion.
What's that?
She wanted.
Patty's power motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Bruce. Motion to approve appointment of Christina Pop as summer program elementary teacher, July 6th, July 28th, for FTA contract. James. Christina. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Ms. Pop. Motion to approve the appointment of Angelique Peck as summer program elementary teacher, July 6th, July 28th, per FETA contract. Motion. Okay, now we're just gonna let you.
Wait, there's only five.
Amanda. Yeah, right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Next, Ella's turn.
Ella's turn. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Motion to approve the appointment of Shannon Smith as summer program teacher, July 6th, 28th, rate per FETA contract. Need motion.
Sure.
John and Ella. Any discussion? All in favor? Good. Ms. Smith. Motion to approve the appointment of Jody Ann Brewer as summer program elementary teacher, July 6th, July 28th, per FETA contract. Need a motion. John, Ella, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Motion to approve the appointment of Jessica Smocko as summer program coordinator at a rate per FETA contract. Need a motion. James and Chris. Any discussion? All in favor? Good. Motion to approve Jill Boucher as floating substitute teacher as needed for summer program, July 6th, July 28th, per FETA contract. Need a motion. Christina? Ella?
Oh, she's.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Motion to approve Debbie LeBaron, the summer program counselor, team member for summer program, July 6th, July 28th, at rate for FTA contract.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll wait for the discussion first.
Okay, need a motion. Patty. Chris.
What exactly is the purpose of the counselor?
Just this case there, with the counselor, and then she's there anyway for the second half of the day to do some of the mandated counseling.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. No good? Motion to appoint Noah Rogers as full-time cleaner at a rate of pay per the FESS contract. James. Amanda. Any discussion? All in favor? Good. Motion to Jeff Durkin as summer program substitute teacher for grades K through 6. Yeah, get that. Patty, John, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Two abstaining, Christina and Amanda. Motion to appoint John Boucher as summer program social studies teacher at a rate, July 6th, July 28th, at a rate per FETA contract. Christina, John, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Boucher, and thank you, Mr. Durkee.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, Toby, any second public comment?
No.
All right. I need a motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters referring to the negotiation of with a specific entity, as well as the employment of specific individuals. Need a motion. John and Chris. John and Chris, Board of Education members, other directors invited into executive session are reminded that all matters discussed in executive session must be kept in short confidence. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks, for joining us this evening.
We didn't get there.
Thank you.
Tom Whitney, good cheese steaks, best pork roast.